45 week in the Paper Crafters Library blog. Every day this week we'll be featuring different projects using Graphic 45's gorgeous tropical travelogue collection. Today's project is this set of 3 4-inch by 4-inch Botanica canvases designed to be used for wall art, and I've broken it up into 2 separate videos. In this video I'm going to show you how to create the memory glass framed images using a faux soldering technique. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I created the memory glass framed images that are at the center of my canvases using a faux soldering technique I learned from Christy Tomlinson at Donna Downey's Soulful Artist event. You can see here what the piece looks like on both sides. So the first thing that you're going to need to do for this technique is to get your melting pot ready. So as I mentioned, this is called a faux soldering technique, and the edges of the frame, the 2 pieces of memory glass, are being held together by ultra thick embossing powder rather than being soldered with a soldering iron and then the actual metal solder. So when you're working with ultra thick embossing powder, you're going to need something that's going to melt it. So here I have the Ranger melting pot, and I am using the Platinum ultra thick embossing powder. It's in new packaging now, it's been repackaged, but the product name is the same. It's called the Platinum. And as you can see, it's a powder in the form of granules, and you sprinkle it into your melting pot, you plug in your melting pot, and then it gets turned to the UT setting, the ultra thick embossing powder. And then you cover it and let it sit until it melts. And then this is what it's going to look like when it's all melted. You can see it's here in this liquid form. So it's going to take, from the time you pour your powder in to the time it melts, it is going to take 5 to 10 minutes. So you do want to make sure that you get that set up ahead of time. The other thing to note is that this pot does get quite hot. Of course, the metal gets supremely hot, so you don't want to touch the metal, but the pot itself gets quite hot, so you want to make sure you're on a surface like a non-stick craft mat, which is the Ranger non-stick craft mat. It's designed to withstand very high temperatures. So the next thing you want to do is to pick the image that you're planning on framing. Now I am working with a pattern paper that's coming from the Graphic 45 Travelogue collection, and it's this Botanica pattern paper, and I've just chosen an image that I really like, and you can see here I've already gone ahead and cut it out. The glass that I'm using to frame the image is from Ranger Essentials line. It's the 2x2 memory glass, and you're going to need 2 pieces because we're sandwiching our image in between. To start with though, 1 is enough. You're going to take your image, then you're going to take your memory glass piece, and you just want to lay the memory glass piece over your image, and you just position it until you have a view that you're happy with. So here I have most of the parrot framed inside my glass. Holding that in place, and then taking my paper snips, and I'm just using the edges of the glass as a guide to cut around my image. So now that I have my image cut out, the next thing I'm going to do is to seal it, and for that I'm using my Claudine Helmuth Studio Multimedia Mat, which is another product from Ranger. So I'm just taking a flat brush and I'm brushing a coat of this multimedium over the surface of my paper. And what this does is just give a protective effect to it. It also will increase the paper's durability. So I'm going to be doing it on both sides, but I'm starting on the front side, then using my Ranger heated craft tool to dry that. And then once the one side is dry, I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to coat the other side, and then I'm going to take my glass piece and I'm going to stick it right to that paper. So the matte medium is holding the paper in place on one of the glass pieces. And that's simply to keep it from shifting when we're doing the faux embossing. So as you can see, it's now stuck to one side of the glass. Now I'm just going to give this one more coat of the multi-medium, and then we're going to do some shading on this. That's the other reason I like to use the multi-medium on this, is because it gives you an ability to be able to shade the image without the material you're using for the shading soaking into the paper. And you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So I'm just going to dry that with my heat tool, and then we'll come back and do the shading. So to add a little bit of shading around the perimeter of my piece, I'm using this Faber-Castell Pitt Big Brush Artist Pen, and I'm using the color number 169. I've also got a baby wipe handy. Now I love using these for shading on all my mixed media work and art journaling, because this is actually India ink, so it's going to dry on any surface, but it has a little bit of an open drying time, so you can work with it. It's not going to dry right away. So I'm taking this color, I'm running it along the edge, wetting my finger, and then I'm just blending my finger, or rubbing my finger back and forth to soften the line, as well as pulling that color inward a little bit. So making sure my finger's damp. You don't want it too wet, because you can actually rub the whole thing off. And then if it gets too intense, as you can see, I can use my baby wipe to take that color off. But it's only going to come off, as you can see here, it's only going to come off to a point. At some point, once it dries, it's permanent. So I'm just going ahead and doing this on all 4 sides. Now, any place where you did not put enough multi-medium, as you can see here and here, where those brown blotches are compared to this side, that's because obviously my multi-medium did not go right to the edge, and it seeps right into the paper. So that's what the multi-medium does, is it allows you to spread it. Now, I'm not too worried about this, because most of that's going to be hidden by our faux soldering. So there you can see what that looks like. We've now added our shading to it. And this is kind of an optional step. It just gives it a little bit of extra visual depth and dimension. So we're now ready for the actual faux soldering part. So here I've got my second piece of glass, and I'm just placing it right on top of my image. So you can see my image is now sandwiched in between the 2 pieces. And you'll remember I have it stuck to the back glass piece just to keep it in place so it doesn't shift. Now, before you actually cover it with the faux, do the actual faux emboss technique, you do want to make sure that if there's any areas of the paper overhanging the edges of the glass, you do want to make sure that that is cut off. You don't want that to stick out beyond the edge of the glass. So then what you do is you make sure that your 2 pieces are sandwiched together and they're perfectly even, and we're now ready to work with our melted embossing powder. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. This is exceedingly hot. Even the plastic is quite hot to the touch. The melted embossing powder and the metal pan will burn you very badly if you get it on your hands or your fingers. So please avoid doing that. Be very careful. Your glass, as you dip it in, is not going to heat up. So you won't, as you're holding it, you're not going to notice it getting hotter. I mean, I guess if you held it in there it would, but in the amount that we're doing, it's not going to. So what you're doing is, as you can see, my embossing powder is towards the back. I'm going to take the glass, I'm going to dip it in, and then I'm going to start pulling it towards me. So I'm dipping it in, it's in not very far, and then I'm just going to, if it's not far enough, you can go a little bit further back in the pot, and then you start kind of pulling it towards you to smooth out the edge a little bit. And then you can see here, you have this faux soldered edge. Then you turn, you dip, lift, kind of pull it a little bit towards you, and then you've got this edge. Now, if at any point, you can see here, I ended up with quite a thick edge, much thicker than the side that I did here. You can either go back and do the other side so that they're even. Let's just try that, see what that looks like. Or if you really don't like how it looks, you can actually crack this all off and start over again. But I actually think I like how this looks. And you can see here I can touch it, it's dried pretty quickly. But it is fragile, so if you don't like how that looks, you can go back, crack it, and then dump it in. Now I am feeling my glass is a little bit warm, but it's not burning me. So there I have my third side, and then I'm going to dip and then I've lifted it up and I'm just kind of dragging it towards me, and what that's doing is helping smooth out the edge a little bit. Now if you get any bumpy edges, and you can see there's this little piece sticking here, you can always very carefully just hold it against the side of your pan and it will melt that off. So you can smooth out bumps like that. But once you're done, you'll see this is what your piece looks like. It looks like you have soldering around the edges. And then I can go ahead and set this aside, and you can use it for more. So there you see a great example on how you can get a faux soldered look using the memory glass. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 separate videos for this project. Both videos have been uploaded to YouTube as well as placed on our blog. If you're watching this video on YouTube, then be sure to click on the link in the video description section and it will take you to the post you see here. You'll be able to link to the second video from that post. At the end of the week, one lucky winner will receive this amazing collection of Travelog products generously provided by Graphic 45. All you have to do to enter is leave us a comment on that same post where you accessed all the videos for today's project. Now be sure to visit our blog every day this week for more great project ideas using Graphic 45's Tropical Travelog collection, and for more opportunities to win, as each day you leave a comment counts as one entry. See you on the blog!